and as a result, you have this permanent natural. It's almost like gravity. You have a natural tendency for politicians to revert to the norm, because it's just so difficult to be a genuine change agent. Because everybody around you, your staff, the news media, your constituents, they all walk in and go, well, obviously, you have to be reasonable. And I was when Clint and I did a movie on Reagan called Rendezvous with Destiny, we went to the ranch and filmed at the ranch. And it was the first time I really understood. Reagan spent 1 year out of 8 at the ranch. I think the reason was he needed to get away to recenter himself so he could come back in, because he was under constant pressure to raise taxes. He was under constant pressure to be reasonable with the Soviet Union. You go into Washington and the establishment doesn't exactly say, please be more conservative. And Reagan's great strength was to work his way through it. I mean, Thatcher was in a different environment, in a different setting, and a much more combative personality. But I think you're back in the same business. If you're serious about meeting the challenges America faces in the next quarter century, you had better be for very, very bold change, and for therefore shaking up the existing institutional structure and the existing power structure very dramatically, because you can never get them to agree voluntarily to the scale of change you need.
But, sir, doesn't that inertia extend to the American public? You said the Gallup data suggests that we're at a minimum 70-30 center right. That might be true, but it might be that they're dispositionally conservative. Some of my colleagues and I have talked about that. There was some truth and some justice to the line from the left during the Obamacare debate that the hypocrisy and the keep your hands off my Medicare. There was some logic in that folks on the right, that this is an entitlement that had become entrenched, and that even if we are a center-right country, we're resisting rolling back entrenched entitlements, things that have become part of the status quo. So won't that present a difficulty in doing things like moving to repeal Obamacare?
I think you'll have almost no difficulty repealing Obamacare, because it's so badly designed and it's going to become such a disaster that I think people will. I mean, we just had a report 2 days ago that the high-risk insurance pools may be 8 times as expensive as they estimated. I mean, just take that one example, and then they're just going to be unending. I mean, I did an event with Governor Bob McDonnell in Richmond on Friday, and it is astonishing how many bad things are coming down the road in the name of Obamacare. So that's not, but take the case of Medicare. What it means is you have to be prepared to reform Medicare in a framework that senior citizens understand, and that people over 50 years of age understand. And you want to reform it in a way which gives them more choices and greater opportunities. And if you believe in markets and you believe in entrepreneurship and you believe in science and technology, then it ought to be able to possible to offer them a better future, not a worse future. And when you look at the Mayo Clinic in Scottsdale announcing they won't take Medicare, that's a harbinger of the future. I mean, so if you go to senior citizens and say, we'd like you to have access to a program that allows you to go any place you want to go, and clearly the current system is going to grind down and lose more and more participants. I think you can, and that's why, ironically, the program that was developed to allow choice in Medicare, which the Democrats just hate, the Medicare Advantage program, the seniors who are in it like it, and it is actually a step towards reorganizing and restructuring Medicare in a very significant way. I think one of the easy steps to offer is that people who are successful ought to be allowed to spend their own money. I mean, why would you say Warren Buffett on Medicare can't spend any of his own money? But we have to raise taxes on everybody because we don't have enough money, and we can't get the money from people who have the money. We can't allow them to voluntarily subsidize Medicare because that violates the Al Gore model of universal enforcement of a single system. I think you win that debate.
We didn't win it on Social Security.
Well, the president designed it wrong. I mean, there's every reason to believe, if you look at the polling data, younger people absolutely believe they'd have a better deal if they had a defined benefit plan, a defined contribution plan where they could have built up in their own money.
They believed that before the crash. Do they still believe it?
Sure, because if you take the stock market from 1994 when I became speaker through the crash to today, you still make a huge net advantage. I mean, it's very important not to confuse long-term investment, which has historically, even through the Great Depression, been profitable, with any 1 or 2 or 3 years.
But people tend to do that, though, I think is the point. I mean, do people still, despite this current crash and this current example, wouldn't you expect to see some drop-off in that?
You'll see some drop-off, but the answer there is fine. Yeah, as Paul Ryan does in one of his proposals, write in that, and as Peter Farrar and I did in the book, write in that we guarantee nobody drops below the Social Security baseline. Now, the fact is, we believe most people will end up having saved more. They will be well above the Social Security baseline. They will not take a penny of taxpayer money. And so I think it's a relatively low-risk guarantee. And certainly the evidence is if you start saving at, whatever age you first go to work, if you put money aside every year and you have the power of compound interest over your entire working lifetime, relatively few people will fall below the current Social Security number.
I don't think any of us need to be sold on the benefits of the plan.
No, but that's how you do it. So you build that in. You say, so when people say, "Gosh, what about X?" You say, "Well, then that would kick in." The government would supplement the difference between what you had saved over your entire lifetime, its monthly payment as an annuity.
But isn't this just a terrible time to want to do that? You've got the baby boomers kicking in next year, all starting to line up for their Social Security, which they believe they've paid for, and they want their return.
They have. That was the contract the politicians offered.
Really bad time to start talking again about reform?
No, because none of the baby boomers think their kids are going to get it. I mean, again, you don't want to talk. I mean, you don't have to be suicidal. There's not an obligation to say, in the name of libertarian purity, let's run out Tuesday and tell people we're taking away everything that's been built up over the last 70 years. Good luck. I mean, you have an obligation to figure out, is there a way to offer a series of, again, here, I'm sort of a free market conservative. Markets, in theory, ought to offer you better values, more rapid innovation, better use of science and technology, greater choice. So why would I want to design a political program that's painful and stupid? So I've got to find a way to say, if you're above a certain age, you're protected. It's too late for us to change your contract. If you're below that age, we want to offer you 2 choices. The current contract, which will be of declining value because there aren't going to be enough workers, or a defined contribution plan that builds up your whole lifetime, which we estimate will give you 2 to 3 times as much money, and which you will control instead of the politicians, which has its own risk premium. Because people don't trust politicians. And by the way, when they watch what's happening in Europe, they're going to trust them a lot less. Because the politicians in Europe are going to be coerced into enormous cuts in spending.
Are not we also?
Yeah, but we're coming later. So we have a chance to actually learn from the Europeans.
Could you comment a little on what you think the lessons from Europe are, and what effect you think a broader EU crisis will have in the United States?
Well, I mean, one of the points I make in To Save America is that 2 + 2 = 4 is the most important political slogan, governmental slogan of the next quarter century. And I really do think that that's right. I thought it was fascinating that Merkel the other day said that this was a fight between the politicians and the market, and she was determined that the government and the markets, and she was determined that the government was going to win, which I thought was a remarkable statement of
lots of luck with that.
Impossibly wrong. But, it's very interesting. In 1981, Mitterrand finally got to be president as a genuine socialist, and passed a whole series of reforms, and within 2 years the world market had punished France so badly that he went on national television and said, it's not possible in the modern world. And he just said, you can't do it. It's not sustainable.